The wind cut sharp through the sleeping town of Maple Creek, whispering over the frozen streets where Anna Whitlock walked alone, a widow, a mother, and the last ember of a life once whole. Her husband, a soldier, had died months ago, leaving behind medals that couldn't keep the lights on, and a loyal dog named Valor, the only piece of him still alive. Tonight, she pushed a rusty cart under the overpass, her daughter Lily curled beneath a blanket that barely kept the cold away. When the wind howled, it sounded like his voice calling from far away. "Keep moving, Annie." She looked at her little girl, at Valor watching the road ahead, and whispered, "Not tonight. God still has us." And with that, she turned toward a sign half buried in snow. Storage auction, tomorrow. She didn't know it yet, but what waited behind that door would change their lives forever. Before we begin, tell me, where are you watching from? Drop your country in the comments below. Snow drifted in thin, nervous spirals across the cracked highway that cut through Maple Creek, Colorado, a town so small it seemed the mountains themselves were slowly swallowing it whole. The sky hung low and gray, the kind of color that turned breath into smoke and hope into something fragile. Beneath that colorless sky, Anna Whitlock stood beside a rusting bus stop sign, her gloved hands gripping the handle of an old shopping cart that held everything she and her daughter owned. She was 34, tall but narrow-shouldered, her once fair skin now weathered from months of wind and worry. Strands of chestnut hair escaped the wool cap that failed to hide how much weight she had lost. Her eyes, gray-blue, like the winter sky before snow, had the hollow patience of someone who had learned to keep moving because stopping meant feeling. Beside her, Lily Whitlock, a small girl of 9, hugged a threadbare stuffed rabbit to her chest. Her brown curls were tangled under a pink beanie, and her boots were 2 sizes too big, hand-me-downs from a donation bin. There was a quiet resilience in her, something older than her years. Every few seconds she glanced up at her mother as if reading her silence for answers. And padding close behind them was Valor, a German shepherd of 13, his once black coat now dusted with silver. One ear drooped slightly from an old scar earned in service beside Anna's late husband. Valor had been trained to respond to battlefield commands, but now his mission was simpler: guard what was left of his family. His movements were slower, but his eyes still carried the steady intelligence of a soldier. Whenever Anna faltered, he pressed against her leg, grounding her like a heartbeat. The war had taken Sergeant Michael Whitlock 3 years ago. Not in the desert firefights that haunted his dreams, but slowly, invisibly, through the sickness that crept into his lungs after returning home. He had died in the same hospital where Anna used to work as an orderly. His medals still hung in the bedroom when his family came to take the house, claiming debts and inheritance. They told her politely, even kindly, that she and Lily had no legal claim. When she refused to leave, her late husband's brother called her a burden and changed the locks while she was at the store. That night, she slept in the car until the engine froze. By morning, they were on foot. For 6 months, Anna had become an expert in invisibility. Gas station bathrooms, soup kitchens, abandoned bus depots. Valor learned to lie quietly beside dumpsters, guarding their cart while Lily colored on napkins. Every sunrise was a negotiation. Find warmth, find food, find the will to keep going. Yet through it all, there remained a strange, stubborn dignity in Anna. She never begged. She thanked every stranger. She carried herself with a quiet grace that seemed borrowed from another life. The wind picked up, slashing across her face. She tightened the scarf around Lily's neck and whispered, "Let's move, sweetheart." The child nodded. They pushed the cart toward the overpass that had become their temporary refuge, a concrete shelter humming with the sound of traffic overhead. Valor trotted ahead, nose to the ground. Later that evening, as the light drained from the sky, Anna lit a single tea light candle shielded inside a tin can. Its flicker painted soft gold on Lily's cheeks as she ate a half sandwich. The little girl's voice was small when she asked, "Mom, do we still have a home?" Anna froze, her fingers trembling on the crust of bread. The word home hit like a bullet she'd been trying to dodge for months. She looked at her daughter, then at Valor lying beside them, his head on his paws, eyes half closed but alert. "Home," Anna whispered after a pause, "isn't a place. It's us. As long as we're together, we're home." Lily leaned against her, murmuring, "Then we'll never be homeless." The candle flickered, and for the first time in days, Anna smiled. That night, she dreamed of Michael. He was younger in the dream, clean-shaven, his uniform pressed. He stood by the old willow near their house, smiling. But when she reached for him, he whispered something she couldn't quite hear. Then, as Valor barked in the distance, the dream shifted. She saw a storage facility, endless rows of metal doors. One door stood slightly open, and from within came a dim golden light. Anna woke before dawn, heart pounding. Valor was sitting upright, staring at her as if he had heard the same whisper. Snow had stopped falling, leaving the ground wrapped in brittle silence. By morning, as they warmed themselves with coffee donated from a diner owner named Mr. Harris, a man in his 60s with a red nose and a laugh too loud for how empty his cafe was, Anna overheard a conversation between two truckers. "There's a storage auction down at Boulder County," one said. "Some of those lockers got abandoned for years. People find crazy stuff in there. Antiques, jewelry, even cash." Her pulse quickened. Valor lifted his head, ears twitching. "Don't get ideas," Mr. Harris chuckled, noticing her expression. "Those auctions are usually full of junk, but sometimes," he shrugged, "fate hides in strange places." Anna nodded absently, staring out the window at the swirling wind. Fate. The word lingered like smoke. By noon, she stood at a payphone outside the bus depot, counting the folded bills in her coat pocket. $107, the last of their savings. Logic told her to buy food and bus tickets to Denver, where there might be shelters. But something deeper, older, stirred within her, the same restless instinct she had once seen in Michael when he couldn't explain why he needed to re-enlist. A whisper saying, "Go." Lily tugged her sleeve. "Mom, where are we going?" "On an adventure," Anna said softly, forcing a smile. "A small one." They walked 3 miles to the county lot, Valor pacing beside them, every few steps glancing back as if to ensure Lily kept up. The storage facility loomed ahead, rows of corrugated metal doors gleaming pale under the afternoon sun. A crowd of 20 or so people milled about, thick jackets, auction paddles in hand. Anna felt out of place among them, her worn boots and patched coat marking her as someone who didn't belong. The auctioneer, a stout man with a red scarf and voice like gravel, opened the first unit, dust and old furniture. "Starting at $200, he barked. Bids rose fast. Anna kept silent, her palms sweating. 2 more units followed, both far beyond her reach. Then came the 4th, Unit 314, 6 months unpaid, owner deceased, starting bid $50. The metal door rolled up with a groan. Inside was darkness, the faint smell of mildew. Boxes sagged with age, a broken chair leaned sideways. The professionals around her turned away in disinterest. Anna felt a strange pull, an ache in her chest. Valor let out a low sound, half growl, half whine, and stepped closer, eyes fixed on the shadowed interior. $50, the auctioneer repeated. Anna raised her hand. The man blinked. 50 from the lady in the gray coat, going once, twice, sold. The gavel hit metal with a hollow clang that echoed through the lot. Lily stared wide-eyed. "Mama, what did we do?" Anna swallowed hard, unsure herself. Valor stood beside her, tail flicking once, eyes bright with something that looked almost like pride. She knelt, brushing his fur. "I guess we just bought a mystery boy." The man handed her a small brass key. "You've got 48 hours to clear it out," he said. As the crowd moved on, the wind shifted, whistling softly through the rows of lockers. Anna looked into the dark space of Unit 314. Valor stepped forward first, nose twitching, then froze. His ears erect, body tense. A low growl rolled from his chest, not from fear, but recognition. Anna's hand tightened on the key. "What is it, Valor?" The dog didn't move. His gaze fixed on something deep within the shadows, something unseen but waiting. And for the first time in months, Anna felt that same chill run through her, the kind that comes when destiny begins to stir. Cold light spilled through the metal ribs of Unit 314 as Anna slid the door fully open. Dust motes swirled like faint ghosts. Valor stepped in first, his claws clicking softly on the concrete floor, his nose twitching with low, rhythmic huffs. Lily stayed near the threshold, hugging her stuffed rabbit, her small face pale in the weak afternoon light. Anna crouched and touched the floor. Cold, gritty, a thin film of oil on her fingertips. The air carried a smell of mildew and something faintly metallic. Inside, the space was cramped, maybe 10 feet deep, its walls lined with stacks of boxes that had caved inward. An old dresser slumped to one side. Its missing drawer leaned against a pile of brittle newspapers. A cracked mirror stood near the back, reflecting their shapes in dull fragments. "Mama," Lily whispered, "is it safe?" Anna forced a smile. "It's just old junk, sweetheart, nothing scary." But Valor's posture said otherwise. His fur bristled slightly, tail low, ears shifting back and forth as if listening to a heartbeat buried in the silence. A voice startled them. "You the buyer?" Turning, Anna saw a man standing just outside the door. Mr. Dalton, the storage manager, was in his 50s, barrel-chested, with red cheeks and the kind of gut earned from too many truck-stop meals. His blue uniform jacket strained at the buttons. A cigarette dangled from his fingers, though he hadn't lit it. "You got 48 hours, he said, his voice not unkind but flat, rehearsed. His eyes flicked from Anna's worn coat to Lily, then to Valor. "Dogs make me nervous," he muttered. "He's gentle," Anna replied softly. Dalton scratched his chin, then shrugged. "Fine, just don't let him bite the insurance guy. They'll be checking the roof leaks later." He moved off down the row, humming tunelessly. Anna exhaled. "Okay, team," she said quietly, trying to sound brave. "Let's see what treasure we bought." She started with the nearest box. It fell apart when she touched it, spilling waterlogged books across the floor. The pages fused together like plaster. Another box contained cracked dishes and a rusted typewriter. "Maybe we can sell something," she said, mostly to herself. Valor sniffed each pile carefully, occasionally pawing at objects before moving on. Lily found an old snow globe half filled with cloudy water and shook it. The flakes inside drifted slowly. "Look, Mama, it's pretty." Anna smiled. "It is. Let's keep that one." They worked for hours, sorting trash from what little might be salvageable. A brass lamp missing its shade, a chipped porcelain mug, a small wooden jewelry box locked tight. As the sun sank, the cold crept back in. When Anna tried to move the broken dresser, Valor suddenly barked once, sharp, commanding. She froze. "What is it?" The dog pushed past her and began sniffing the far wall, specifically a section where the wood paneling met the concrete. His, nose pressed along the seam, then he pawed twice, whining low. Anna approached, running her fingers along the boards. They weren't solid. One shifted slightly under pressure. "That's odd," she murmured. She pulled her multi-tool from the pocket of her coat and pried gently. The board gave way with a dry crack, releasing a faint smell of mold and dust, older than the air around them. Behind the loose panel was a hollow space. Lily's eyes widened. "It's a secret place," she breathed. Anna reached inside, her hand brushing something smooth and cold. She pulled out a metal box the size of a toolbox, heavy with 3 brass locks. Beneath it lay a large envelope sealed in red wax, and beside that a smaller wooden box carved with delicate swirls. "Someone hid these," Anna said. Valor sat beside her, eyes fixed on the box's tail sweeping once across the floor. Back in the light outside, she brushed off the dust. The locks on the metal box were old but sturdy. The carved box opened easily. Inside, wrapped in tissue, were 6 black and white photographs, a smiling man in a rolled-up shirt standing before the Ashford textile mill, his arm around a younger woman. On the back of one photo, written in neat ink, "Thomas and Adelaide, 1962, we were going to change the world." Anna felt a small electric jolt. The name Ashford appeared again. It matched the faded sign she'd seen on that abandoned building near the river where they sometimes passed the night. She showed the picture to Lily. "That's the mill we walked by last week," the girl said in wonder. "You think these people worked there?" "Maybe owned it," Anna murmured. She opened the envelope next, carefully breaking the brittle seal. Inside were folded pages of aged stationery. The handwriting was fine and spidery. "To whoever finds this, I'm sorry I didn't have the courage." Anna began reading aloud, voice low. The letter spoke of guilt, of a man named Thomas who had died in an accident that wasn't one, of a manager named Dale Pritchard who had falsified safety reports and stolen company funds. The writer, Adelaide Ashford, confessed she had hidden the evidence in this very box, along with property deeds and proof of embezzlement, too afraid to expose the truth while alive. Lily leaned against her mother, listening wide-eyed. "So it's like a mystery story." Anna smiled faintly. "Yes, sweetheart. A sad one." They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of history pressing around them. Valor broke it with a soft whine, nudging Anna's hand. She realized she was shaking. "We should go," she said. "It's getting dark." She wrapped the metal box in an old flannel shirt, tucked the photos and letter into her backpack, and helped Lily to her feet. As they left, the wind rattled the loose panel behind them. Outside, the sky had gone purple. Anna locked the unit, pocketing the small brass key. They would return tomorrow to gather the total rest. But for now, her thoughts were a storm. If the letter was true, the old mill, where she and Lily sometimes found shelter, was part of something bigger, darker. The name Ashford echoed in her mind. They caught the evening bus back toward town, Valor curling at their feet. The driver, Ms. Irene Blake, was a sturdy woman in her 40s with warm brown skin and curly hair tucked under a cap. She recognized them from previous rides and always let them on even when Anna's fare was short. "Rough day?" Irene asked, glancing in the rearview mirror. "You could say that," Anna said with a faint smile. "Well," Irene replied, her tone a mix of firmness and compassion, "sometimes junk turns into gold if you dig deep enough. You hang in there, sweetheart." Her kindness carried the steady warmth of someone who had known hardship but chosen gentleness anyway. By the time they reached the outskirts of Maple Creek, night had fully taken the valley. The moon hung low, a thin sliver of light guiding their steps as they pushed the cart toward the derelict mill by the river. Valor trotted ahead, his breath visible in the cold air. When they reached the chain-link fence, Anna stopped, staring up at the silhouette of the building. The words, "Ashford Textile Mill," were barely visible, faded by decades of wind and rain. She touched the fence absently, the letter's words echoing. "I never sold it, couldn't bear to." A realization struck her. It was possible no one legally owned the place now. That meant the mill wasn't just their shelter. It might somehow already belong to them. Lily tugged her sleeve. "Mama, are we sleeping there again tonight?" Anna nodded slowly. "Yes, just for now." Inside the cavernous space, the shadows moved differently that night. Anna set down her pack, lit their single candle, and placed the sealed metal box beside it. The flame flickered across its brass surface, making the locks gleam. Valor lay beside the box, chin on his paws, eyes unblinking, as though guarding it from the darkness. Anna wrapped Lily in a blanket, brushed the child's curls from her face, and whispered, "Tomorrow we'll figure it out. Maybe this box means something good." But when she looked toward the far wall, where cracks ran like veins through the concrete, she felt a prickle of unease. Valor's ears twitched, his gaze fixed on the shadows. Somewhere, faint but real, she thought she heard the echo of machinery turning, something deep in the mill waking after years of silence. The night in Maple Creek was brittle and sharp, the air tasting of iron and smoke as Anna stirred awake on the cold concrete floor of the mill office. A single candle still burned low in a chipped mug beside her, throwing unsteady shadows across the peeling walls. Lily was asleep beside her, one arm curled protectively around her stuffed rabbit. Valor, the old German shepherd, sat upright by the door, muscles tensed, ears flicking at every creak of the wind outside. His breath misted in the pale air, forming ghosts that vanished before touching the ground. Anna rubbed her hands together, chasing warmth, her gaze drifting to the metal box that gleamed faintly in the candlelight. The brass locks looked older now, heavy with secrets. Morning seeped slowly into the mill through broken windows, illuminating the dust that hung thick in the air. Anna stood, her back aching from the hard floor. She moved quietly, so as not to wake Lily, and stepped outside into the skeletal expanse of the factory floor. Rusted machines loomed in silence, massive looms and conveyor belts frozen mid-motion, all coated in decades of grime. Pigeons cooed somewhere in the rafters. The place smelled of oil and cold steel. Yet, Beneath that, she could swear there was another scent, damp paper and something faintly floral, like old perfume. Valor padded behind her, paws leaving faint prints on the dust. "You hear it too?" Anna murmured. The dog tilted his head. Somewhere deep within the mill, a metallic sound echoed, a steady drip of water hitting metal, or perhaps something else. When Lily woke, they shared breakfast, half a granola bar and 2 cups of instant coffee diluted with warm water. Lily didn't complain. She never did. "Mama, can we open the box today?" she asked between sips. "Not yet," Anna said. "We need to be careful. We don't know what's inside." By mid-morning, Anna decided they needed answers. She packed the letter and one of the photographs into her backpack, wrapped Lily in her thickest coat, and they set off toward town with Valor trotting at their side. The public library in Maple Creek stood on a hill above the main street, a squat brick building with ivy crawling across its walls. Inside, it smelled of dust, paper, and a faint lemon polish. The librarian, Mrs. Harlow, was a woman in her late 50s with silver hair cut short and round glasses that magnified her pale blue eyes. Her cardigan was the color of moss, and she had the calm patience of someone who had spent a lifetime surrounded by silence. "Can I help you?" she asked as Anna approached the front desk, her tone polite but guarded. Anna hesitated before replying. "I'm looking for information about the Ashford textile mill." Mrs. Harlow raised her eyebrows slightly. "That old place? Been shut down since the 80s? Lot of stories about it." She peered at Anna's worn clothes, the child holding her hand, the dog waiting obediently by the door. Something softened in her expression. "You can check the archives in the back room, newspaper reels, city records. But be careful with the machines. They're older than I am." "Thank you," Anna said. They spent hours there, the whir of the microfilm reader echoing softly in the quiet room. Lily sat beside her, coloring on scrap paper, while Valor dozed under the table. The old headlines told a grim story. 1983, worker killed in machinery accident at Ashford Mill. 1984, 2 more deaths at local factory. 1987, mill shuts down after safety violations. The name Thomas Ashford appeared again and again, described as beloved co-owner and tragically lost in a workplace incident. Nowhere did it mention foul play. No one wrote about Adelaide. As Anna scrolled further, she found another name, Dale Pritchard, floor manager. The grainy photograph showed a younger man with slicked hair, a confident smile that didn't reach his eyes. Even through the black and white, something about his expression unsettled her, a smugness that whispered danger. She printed the article, folded it carefully, and slipped it into her bag. Mrs. Harlow stopped by with 2 steaming cups of cocoa. "On the house," she said. "For your little one? And for you." Then, after a pause, she added softly, "My husband worked at that mill once. Quit after Thomas died. Said something there wasn't right." Her eyes met Anna's. "Be careful digging into ghosts, dear. Some of them still have teeth." Anna nodded, throat tight. By afternoon, snow began to fall again, thick and silent. The wind howled through the town as they walked back toward the river. On the bridge near the old freight line, a stranger stopped them, a man with salt and pepper stubble, wearing a heavy brown coat and a beanie pulled low. "You folks okay out here?" he asked. His voice was deep, rough like gravel, but not unfriendly. Anna tensed. Valor moved between them, tail stiff. The man raised both hands in peace. "Easy, big guy. I'm Luther Kane. Used to work maintenance over at the mill years back. Saw you walking by there last night. Figured you might be squatting." His gray eyes flicked toward Lily. "Not judging. Place is safer than most of the shelters, honestly." Anna studied him. He was in his mid-40s, lean but broad-shouldered, his cheeks weathered and hands rough with old scars. He looked like someone who'd lived too long outdoors. "We just needed somewhere dry," she said cautiously. Luther nodded. "Understand. Lost my job there when they closed it. Been scraping by since. That building's got stories, though. Strange ones." "What kind of stories?" "Things that didn't add up," he said. "After Thomas Ashford's death, folks started disappearing, machines breaking down without cause. The last night before it closed, I swear the power turned itself on. Whole floor lit up like it was breathing." He gave a half smile. "Probably just my mind playing tricks. But if you're staying there, Keep your dog close. He tipped his head at Valor. Good breed, loyal. They sense what we can't. Anna thanked him, and they continued on. The snow thickened, muffling the world into silence. When they reached the mill, dusk had fallen again. Inside, Anna lit 2 candles and set the metal box on the desk. She pulled out Adelaide's letter and reread it slowly, her breath visible in the cold air. Each line carried weight now that she had seen the records, the articles, the picture of Pritchard's smirk. Maybe whoever finds this has more courage than I did. Her hands trembled slightly as she brushed the brass locks. If this has the proof Adelaide said, it could change everything, she murmured. Lily leaned on her shoulder. Maybe it could change our lives too. Valor lifted his head suddenly, ears twitching. A low growl vibrated in his chest. What is it? Anna whispered. From the far side of the mill came the sound again, the metallic hum she'd heard the night before, faint but unmistakable, like machinery waking from a long sleep. She rose, heart hammering, and picked up the flashlight. The beam cut through the dark, illuminating swirling dust. The sound stopped. Probably just the wind, she said, though her voice wavered. They turned back toward the office, only to find the metal box lid slightly ajar. The locks were still intact, but the top had shifted, as though something inside had pressed upward from within. Valor barked once, sharp and alert, his eyes locked on the box. The candle flickered violently, and the air seemed to thicken, heavy with the smell of old metal and burning dust. Anna froze, one hand over Lily's shoulder. "Stay behind me!" The room fell silent again, but the weight of Essene eyes lingered. Outside, the wind rattled the broken windows, and somewhere deep in the belly of the mill, a faint sound echoed, a rhythmic, mechanical heartbeat, slow and steady. Anna reached out and touched the cold surface of the box. It was vibrating, and in that instant, Valor began to bark, not in fear this time, but in warning. The wind outside the Ashford textile mill screamed through its broken rafters like an old memory refusing to die. Inside, the candle had gone out. Only the faint moonlight filtering through cracked glass gave shape to the outlines of rusted machines and ghostly beams of dust. Anna's breath came fast and shallow. The metal box still trembled on the desk, faint vibrations rippling through the air like the hum of a distant engine. Valor stood rigid, hackles raised, eyes locked on the box, teeth bared but silent, as if waiting for a command that hadn't yet come. Lily clung to her mother's coat. "Mama, make it stop," she whispered, her voice barely more than air. Anna forced herself forward. She rested her palm on the lid, cold, shaking slightly beneath her hand, and felt the vibration slow, then fade until only her own heartbeat remained. For a moment, there was utter silence. Valor lowered his head, tail still stiff, and sniffed the edges of the box, whining softly. Anna turned to Lily. "It's okay," she said, though her voice betrayed her. "It's over." But even as she spoke, she knew something had shifted. The next morning dawned colorless, wrapped in mist that seemed to seep from the very walls of the mill. Anna didn't sleep. She sat beside the box all night, thinking about Michael, her husband, about the war that took him, about promises broken and debts unpaid. She had seen too many secrets buried by men who wanted silence more than justice. Now, somehow, fate had dropped another one in her lap. When Lily awoke, rubbing her eyes, Anna smiled faintly. "We're going to find out what's inside," she said. But she couldn't do it alone. After breakfast, if 2 biscuits and lukewarm coffee could be called that, she led Lily and Valor back into town. Their breath smoked in the morning cold. The streets were slick with meltwater, snow retreating into gutters. The mill's shadow followed them like a thought that wouldn't let go. They stopped at the library first. Mrs. Harlow greeted them with her usual soft smile, but when Anna explained what had happened, that smile faltered. "You said the box moved?" the librarian repeated quietly. "By itself?" Anna hesitated, embarrassed at how it sounded aloud. Maybe it was just air pressure, or a vibration from the machines shifting in the wind. But her tone made even her doubt herself. Mrs. Harlow looked at her for a long moment before saying, "Some truths demand to be found. Sometimes they push back." She wrote an address on a scrap of paper. "Here. If you're serious about this, talk to Frank Owens. He's a retired detective, used to investigate industrial accidents until the department shut him out. He lives on the north side of town. Frank Owens was 63, tall but stooped slightly from years of bad posture, his once black hair now mostly white and unevenly cut. He had a lined face, the kind that told you he'd spent more time frowning at evidence than smiling at people. His eyes, a pale green, were sharp and suspicious by nature. He opened the door in a flannel shirt and suspenders, peering at Anna like she was a puzzle. "You're the woman asking about Ashford Mill?" he said before she could speak. His voice was gravel, and his stubble gave him the rough look of a man who'd made peace with solitude. "Yes," Anna said. I found something connected to Thomas Ashford's death." At first he looked ready to close the door, but when she mentioned the metal box and Adelaide's confession, something in his face changed. He gestured them in. His home smelled faintly of tobacco and machine oil. Files and coffee cups covered every surface. Valor circled once, sniffing the corners before settling near the fireplace. Lily perched silently on a wooden chair, her wide eyes watching everything. Frank listened as Anna recited what she had found: the letter, the photographs, the article about Dale Pritchard, and the strange movement of the box. He said nothing until she finished, then leaned back with a sigh. "I remember that case," he muttered. "Ashford's death. Officially an accident. Privately, we all knew something stank, but Pritchard had friends in the city council. They buried it, and anyone who asked too many questions got reassigned or retired early." He rubbed a scar on his knuckle absently, as though it still itched. "Can you help me open it?" Anna asked quietly. Frank studied her for a long time. "You're not from here," he said finally. "You could walk away. Leave it to rot. Why risk it?" Anna thought of Michael, his medals, his cough, the way he'd told her that some things were worth fighting for even when the fight was unwinnable. "Because someone has to," she said simply. Something like respect flickered in Frank's eyes. "All right," he said, pushing to his feet. "Bring it here." They carried the box into his workshop, a cluttered space of tools, wires, and old police gear. Frank examined the locks. Brass, 1950s design, triple reinforcement. "Whoever sealed this didn't want it opened easy," he said. He ran his thumb across the seam, squinting. "These aren't rusted. Someone oiled them before closing." He reached for his lockpicks. "This might take a while." Anna stood beside him, her heart thudding as each metallic click echoed through the workshop. Lily crouched by Valor, whispering to him, "Do you think there's treasure inside, boy?" Valor wagged his tail once but didn't take his eyes off Frank. The first lock clicked open, then the second. When Frank started on the third, his hands trembled slightly. "I'm too old for this," he grumbled, forcing the pick until a sharp crack rang out. The final latch released. He looked up at Anna. "Ready?" She nodded. Together they lifted the lid. Inside, wrapped in oilcloth, were stacks of papers, faded. Inspection reports, handwritten notes, and several old photographs of factory equipment covered in red markings. Beneath them sat a small leather-bound journal embossed with the initials TB. And at the very bottom, in a separate pouch, lay a reel-to-reel tape recorder with a label dated October 12, 1983. Frank let out a low whistle. "Thomas Brennan's evidence," he murmured. "It's all here." Anna's hands shook as she turned the first pages of the journal. The entries were meticulous. Descriptions of safety violations, missing funds, bribes paid under the table. The final page stopped her cold. "If anything happens to me, Adelaide knows where the proof will be. I trust her. The mill deserves truth." Lily leaned closer, eyes wide. "Mama, this is important, right?" Anna smiled faintly, brushing her daughter's hair back. "Yes, sweetheart. It's more important than you know." Frank exhaled slowly, rubbing his temples. "If we go public, Pritchard will come after you. He's still got influence. But if we play this right—" He trailed off. "There's a woman I trust. Eliza Chen, lawyer, mid-40s, sharp as hell. Doesn't scare easy. I'll contact her." As he spoke, Valor suddenly stood and growled low toward the window. Outside, the wind carried the sound of tires crunching gravel. A black sedan slowed near the curb, idled, then drove away. Frank's jaw tightened. "They already know," he muttered. Anna's pulse spiked. "What do we do?" "We move fast," Frank said, "before they move first." He closed the box, locking it again. "Take the journal. Keep it hidden. Meet me at Eliza's office tomorrow. I'll bring the rest. As Anna wrapped the journal in her scarf, Valor pressed close to her leg, his body warm against the chill. Outside, the sun was setting, pale gold fading into steel gray. She looked down at Lily, who was holding Valor's leash with both hands. "Mama," the girl said softly, "if we tell the truth, will it make the bad people go away?" Anna knelt beside her. "Maybe not right away," she said, "but it'll make the good ones stronger." They left the detective's house as twilight deepened, the streets glistening from melted snow. The mill's silhouette loomed far across the valley, silent, waiting. And somewhere in the darkened hills, headlights flared once, then vanished. Anna tightened her grip on the journal. Valor's ears pricked toward the road, a low rumble rising from his throat. The cold bit into her skin, but she didn't flinch. For the first time in months, she felt something stirring in her chest. Not fear, but resolve. Justice had been asleep for 40 years. Now, at last, it was beginning to wake. The morning sky over Maple Creek burned pale gold against the frost, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Anna stood outside Eliza Chen's law office, a narrow brick building wedged between a bakery and a pawn shop, clutching the scarf-wrapped journal to her chest. Valor sat alert at her side, his coat dusted with snow, while Lily pressed her mittened hands together, eyes wide with the quiet hope of a child who sensed that something important was about to happen. Inside, the air smelled faintly of coffee and paper. Eliza Chen, the lawyer Frank had spoken of, looked up from her desk as they entered. She was in her mid-40s, slender but strong in posture, her dark hair pulled into a neat bun. Her almond eyes studied Anna with measured calm, the kind of gaze that had seen both the worst and best in people and refused to flinch at either. She wore a charcoal gray suit, sleeves rolled to her elbows, revealing faint scars on her wrists, the kind that told stories of long work and longer battles. "You must be Anna," Eliza said, her voice smooth but resolute. "Frank told me you found something that could wake the ghosts of this town." Anna managed a faint smile, more like something that refuses to stay buried. Frank Owens entered a few minutes later, shaking snow from his coat. He looked tired but purposeful, the way soldiers do when they've found a fight worth finishing. "She's telling the truth," he said, setting a small metal recorder on the desk, the one from the box. "This tape, I played it last night. It's Pritchard himself. He talks about cutting corners, bribing inspectors, covering up Thomas Ashford's death. Adelaide must have recorded him." Eliza leaned forward, her eyes gleaming. "If that's genuine, it's enough to reopen the case and file a wrongful death petition. But if we go public, Pritchard's lawyers will swarm. We'll need witnesses, context, and the deed records to the mill." Anna opened the journal and spread the papers across the desk. "They're all here. Inspections, accounting ledgers, even the deed transfer Adelaide never filed." Eliza's brow furrowed as she examined the documents. "That means the property still legally belongs to the Ashford estate, not the city, not Pritchard's holding company." She looked up, meeting Anna's eyes. "You understand what this means?" Anna nodded. "It means this mill, the place where my daughter and I slept when we had nowhere else, was never theirs to steal." Frank leaned against the wall, lighting a cigarette despite Eliza's glare. "The press will eat this alive, but it won't be safe. Pritchard's got men who don't like losing." "Then we move before they can silence it," Eliza said, standing. "Tonight, I'll file an injunction and send the tape to the Tribune. By dawn, the world will know." By evening, the storm returned, heavy snow sweeping across the valley, like white fire. The old mill loomed in the distance, its windows glowing faintly from the lantern Anna had left burning. They gathered there one last time, Anna, Lily, Frank, Eliza, and Valor. Inside, the building hummed faintly as though recognizing them. The walls seemed to breathe again, the ancient machinery reflecting the candlelight. On a table lay the open journal, Adelaide's trembling handwriting glimmering in the dimness. Eliza placed her phone on speaker. A voice from the Denver Tribune confirmed receipt of the files and audio evidence. "We're running it in the morning," the editor said. "Page 1. Frank exhaled, the tension of decades easing from his shoulders. "About damn time." Anna looked around the vast, hollow space, the same one that had once been filled with sweat, laughter, and tragedy. "Do you think it'll matter?" she asked softly, "after all these years?" Eliza smiled faintly. "Justice doesn't expire. It just waits for someone brave enough to dig it up." Lily reached out to stroke Valor's head. "Then Mama did it," she said proudly. "She found the truth." Valor wagged his tail and leaned into the girl's touch, his gray muzzle catching the firelight. For the first time since Michael's death, Anna felt something unclench inside her chest. She thought of him then, his voice calm and steady, the way he used to say, "The fight isn't about winning, Annie. It's about standing up." She whispered it now like a prayer, the words dissolving into the snow-filled air. By dawn, the world had changed. The headlines screamed, "Truth buried for decades. Ashford Mill corruption exposed. Evidence proves cover-up in factory deaths." The town buzzed with disbelief, then outrage. Reporters swarmed the courthouse, while Pritchard's company released a terse statement denying involvement. But the tape spoke louder than any lawyer's denial. Within days, legal proceedings began. Investigations reopened. Workers' families, the ones long forgotten, finally had names, faces, and a chance to be heard. Eliza took on their cases pro bono. Frank provided testimony, breaking the silence he had carried for 40 years. And Anna, once a nameless widow with nothing left, became the quiet face of truth restored. Weeks later, she stood once more outside the mill, now cordoned off with police tape and banners announcing historical preservation site pending. Snow fell softly around her boots. Lily ran ahead, chasing flakes, her laughter echoing where once machines had screamed. Valor followed slowly, his steps deliberate, every movement heavy with age. His eyes, still bright, watched the girl as if counting her every breath. Anna crouched, brushing snow from his muzzle. "You did good, boy," she whispered. "You brought us home." At that, Valor gave a soft, contented sigh, the kind dogs make when they finally know their job is done. 3 months. Later, spring arrived in Maple Creek. The river thawed, the grass returned, and the mill stood silent, but no longer dead. The city approved its restoration as a memorial and community center, funded by the fines Pritchard's company was forced to pay. Eliza called it the Ashford Redemption Project. Anna got a night job at the local hospital, the same one where Michael once worked. During the day, she helped Eliza catalog the mill's recovered artifacts for the museum. Lily returned to school, and on weekends she volunteered at the shelter where they used to sleep. Valor, though slower now, still guarded their small apartment by the window. Some evenings, when the sunset burned amber over the valley, Anna would sit beside him, running her fingers through his fur, feeling the steady rhythm of his breath. One quiet afternoon, Lily came home waving a letter. "Mama, Miss Eliza started a scholarship," she beamed. "It's named after Valor, the Valor's Promise Fund. It helps kids like me who didn't have a home." Anna pressed the letter to her heart, her eyes shining. "He'd like that," she whispered. That night, as the town lights flickered on and the wind whispered through the fields, Anna stood at the window, watching snow fall one last time before spring. Lily slept peacefully in her room, and Valor dozed by the radiator, his tail twitching in some gentle dream. The world at last was quiet. Not empty, but full. Anna smiled to herself, whispering into the silence, "Home isn't a place. It's what you build when the world tries to take everything away, and you still choose love." Outside, snowflakes melted on the glass like tiny promises kept, and somewhere deep within the old Ashford mill, a faint hum echoed, not of machines or ghosts, but of life beginning again. When all seemed lost, when the nights in Maple Creek were cold and faith was thin as breath, a quiet miracle unfolded. It didn't come with thunder or light, but in the steady courage of a widow who refused to give up, in a child's unwavering trust, and in the loyalty of a dog who guarded what was sacred: love, truth, and home. Sometimes, God doesn't send us miracles wrapped in gold. He sends them disguised as small acts of strength. A mother holding her child through the night, a stranger offering kindness, or an old soul like Valor leading the way when we can't see the road ahead. And when we dare to keep walking through the snow, that's when heaven opens a little wider. Let this story remind us that faith isn't about having everything, but about believing that even from brokenness, something divine can rise. That justice, like grace, never really dies. It only waits for the right heart to awaken it. If you believe in quiet miracles, in the unseen hands of God guiding us through the cold, share this story with someone who needs hope tonight. Leave a comment with where you're watching from. Let's build a circle of faith that stretches across the world. Subscribe for more stories that remind us how light always finds a way home. May God bless you, protect your family, and grant you the strength to see His miracles in the ordinary days of your life. Amen.